What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. We are right around the corner from the 2025 Money in the Bank Premium Live event, and around this time, we always speculate on who will end up being Mr. and Mrs. Money in the Bank, signaling who WWE may place next in line to become a world champion and a top superstar of the company. 83% of superstars as of the recording of this video have successfully cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase, with many of them winning their first world championship by using this plot device that has changed so many careers. Last year, I had made a video on if every failed cash-in had been successful, which at the moment is one of the most viewed episodes on this channel to date. And many of you guys afterwards had suggested the idea of basically the opposite of that, where potentially that 83% isn't a success rate, but actually an unsuccess rate. So of course, that's going to be the topic of today's video. We're discussing what if all successful cash-ins had failed. For this video, not only do I have to determine when they would fail their Money in the Bank cash-in, but I will also do my best to not have it take place the same time as their successful cash-in. I feel maybe one or two of them may take place during the same scenario, but it'll be ones that make sense to do so. And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share this to all your friends, subscribe, and press the notification bell for when future episodes get released, and leave a comment down below about today's topic or suggesting a future topic for an episode of Pro Wrestling What If. So we're going to be kicking off with the 2005 winner Edge, who had successfully cashed in on John Cena after his Elimination Chamber match at New Year's Revolution 2006 to become the new WWE Champion. Now, in a world where the first Money in the Bank winner ends up failing their cash-in, which I think the ideal scenario would have been to cash in after John Cena retains the WWE Championship in the main event of WrestleMania 22. However, due to this scenario involving the first ever Money in the Bank winner, I think Vince McMahon might have found a way to have Edge fail, but not in a way that he loses in a match, simply by not having him be able to cash in the contract within the 1 year time span. The 2006 winner Rob Van Dam had successfully cashed in with a pre-announced cash-in against John Cena at ECW One Night Stand 2006 to become the new WWE Champion. Now we're looking at the Money in the Bank briefcase now having a 50% success rate at this point, because I am in the mindset here that Edge still successfully cashes in the year before, because had he actually failed, the video would be done here, as WWE would have scrapped the concept had they actually had the first winner fail. Rob Van Dam would have failed his cash-in on the July 3rd, 2006 episode of Raw, the same episode where Rob Van Dam had lost the WWE Championship to Edge in the real timeline. This was due to Rob Van Dam getting arrested for drug possession a few days before and had dropped the title in order to serve a suspension afterwards. So I think the way Rob Van Dam fails his cash-in would be to actually lose the briefcase in a match against Edge like they did with Mr. Kennedy a year later. Had WWE decided to not have Rob Van Dam cash in at One Night Stand, it's likely that it would have been another pay-per-view like SummerSlam that they would have planned to do so. However, once the arrest would happen, that's what would have caused Rob Van Dam to then fail his cash-in by losing it to Edge, especially since Edge would go on to feud with John Cena when it comes to SummerSlam that year, along with the TLC match the following month. For 2007, we had Edge, which he had won the briefcase from the original winner Mr. Kennedy in a match on the May 7th, 2007 episode of Raw, before cashing it in that same week on SmackDown on Undertaker after his steel cage match to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. For Edge to fail this specific Money in the Bank cash-in, I think it would have been to do the same intentions as Mr. Kennedy by cashing it in at WrestleMania 24, especially because it was the long-term booking plan from when he successfully cashed in to end up having Edge challenge Undertaker at the event. So this would have meant that Edge would have had to do a pre-announced cash-in to guarantee himself not only a main event match at WrestleMania, but to try and end the Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. The 2008 winner CM Punk had cashed in on Edge during the June 30th, 2008 episode of Raw to become the new World Heavyweight Heavyweight Champion. Now, the reason this cash-in was done was to bring the World Heavyweight Championship over to Raw, as Triple H had gotten drafted to SmackDown and brought the WWE Championship with him. If CM Punk had failed his cash-in, not only would have taken place later than it did, but I think that Batista would have won the World Heavyweight Championship the night before at Night of Champions, especially since he got drafted to Raw the week prior and he would already be bringing the title to the brand. Batista would have probably held the title until at least SummerSlam, the same event where he would end up having the first time ever match against John Cena. Now that this match would be for the World Heavyweight Championship, I think this would be the place for CM Punk to fail a cash-in, turning the match into a triple threat to protect both John Cena and Batista depending on who would be walking out as the World Heavyweight Champion, opening up the opportunity to eventually have a proper singles match between the two that would take place at WrestleMania. The 2009 winner, which was also CM Punk, had cashed in on Jeff Hardy at Extreme Rules 2009 by becoming the new World Heavyweight Champion after Hardy just won the title from Edge in a ladder match. I think CM Punk would have cashed in on the SmackDown after Extreme Rules, where CM Punk would announce a pre-announced cash-in to challenge Jeff Hardy in the main event. When it came to Punk's successful cash-in in the real timeline, he had turned heel in the process as he had ruined Jeff Hardy's celebration. In this case, after losing the match, this would be another way for CM Punk to turn heel by attacking Jeff Hardy after the match, leading to them still being able to feud and have a match at the WWE Bash event that results in CM Punk being able to win the World Heavyweight Championship with cheap tactics to do so. The 2010 winner, Jack Swagger, had cashed in on Chris Jericho on the SmackDown after WrestleMania 26 to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. Jack Swagger's failed Money in the Bank cash-in would have happened on the Raw after WrestleMania 26, as it was already teased in the real timeline of Jack Swagger potentially cashing in on John Cena for his WWE Championship. With this being 2010, if you actually cashed in on Super Cena, it would guarantee a failed cash-in. The reason Jack Swagger cashed in so quickly was due to WWE wanting to do the inaugural Money in the Bank pay-per-view later on in the year. Had they delayed Jack Swagger's cash-in, not only would a few things not happen during the WWE draft like Edge going to Raw, WWE would have had to delay plans to introduce the inaugural event until the following year, where just like in 2010, a Money in the Bank ladder match would happen at WrestleMania 27 in this case, and the inaugural event happened months later, meaning that both The Miz and Kane wouldn't have become Mr. Money in the Bank since the inaugural event wouldn't have happened in 2010. The Miz in 2010 had cashed in on Randy Orton on the Raw after Survivor Series 2010 to become the new WWE Champion. The Miz failing his Money in the Bank cash-in would have happened during the Wade Barrett-Randy Orton match the night before at Survivor Series. This failed cash-in might have been the way for WWE to have actually pulled the trigger on a Wade Barrett WWE Championship reign. With Miz cashing in and making it a triple threat match, this would have allowed Randy Orton to lose the match without taking the fall, while also not having that pointless angle of John Cena getting fired only to be rehired a week or two later. And then the third 2010 winner, being Kane, had cashed in on Rey Mysterio less than an hour after winning the Money in the Bank briefcase the same night to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. The biggest reason for Kane to have won the briefcase was for it to be a plot device involving the storyline with The Undertaker. So I think had Kane not cashed in at Money in the Bank, he would have cashed in at SummerSlam. In the process of Kane having his match for the World Heavyweight Championship, Undertaker would make his return like he did in the real timeline. This would cause Kane to lose focus and not be able to pick up the win and fail his Money in the Bank cash-in. The first 2011 winner was Alberto Del Rio, who had cashed in on CM Punk at SummerSlam 2011 to become the new WWE Champion. At Money in the Bank the month prior to Del Rio's successful cash-in, CM Punk had won the WWE Championship from John Cena. This was the night where it was the final night of CM Punk's existing WWE contract. Vince McMahon even called out Alberto Del Rio to cash in his Money in the Bank contract to prevent CM Punk from leaving the company with the title. This could have been an actual Money in the Bank cash-in, resulting in Alberto Del Rio failing and CM Punk still being able to leave the company with the WWE Championship in the process. The other 2011 winner being Daniel Bryan had cashed in on Big Show at TLC 2011 to become the new World Heavyweight Champion after Big Show had just won it from Mark Henry. The way that Daniel Bryan was being booked as Mr. Money in the Bank almost looked like he was going to have the first failed cash-in. So it would have been at any point while he was holding it in which I'm going to say Daniel Bryan would have cashed in after Mark Henry's Hell in a Cell match against Randy Orton. The idea being that Mark Henry wouldn't be at 100% after competing inside the structure, but would still have some gas left in the tank to be able to defeat Daniel Bryan to retain the title. One of the 2012 winners, Dolph Ziggler, had successfully cashed in on Alberto Del Rio on the Raw after WrestleMania 29 to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. Now, there was definitely a feeling that there could have been a big chance that Dolph Ziggler would fail his cash-in with how underutilized he was throughout his entire career. There's actually one instance that could have had him fail, being the same way as Mr. Kennedy in 2007 and what I said about Rob Van Dam earlier, that being losing the briefcase in a match. On the Raw after SummerSlam 2012, Dolph Ziggler had put his Money in the Bank briefcase on the line in a match against Chris Jericho, who had put his WWE contract on the line as well. Although Chris Jericho losing the match made sense due to him writing off to tour with Fozzy for the rest of the year, Chris Jericho could have been written off with an injury had he actually won the match, having us wonder if Chris Jericho would be able to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase on time. One of the 2013 winners, being Randy Orton, had successfully cashed in on Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam 2013 to become the new WWE Champion after Daniel Bryan had just won the title from John Cena. This was actually a difficult scenario to think about because I can't imagine a scenario of Randy Orton failing this cash-in, but here it goes. When Randy Orton had successfully cashed in, the moment had turned him heel in the process, which I think that aspect needs to be incorporated when discussing him failing the cash-in. So I think Randy Orton would be doing a pre-announced cash-in for the Night of Champions pay-per-view the following month in a match where, just like their actual match at this event, results in Randy Orton losing. This frustrates Randy Orton into turning heel after the match, leading to the same Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels as the referee, where Shawn Michaels would screw over Daniel Bryan and allow Randy Orton to walk out as the new WWE Champion. The 2014 winner Seth Rollins had cashed in on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31 in the middle of his match against Brock Lesnar, making it a triple threat to become the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. A world where the heist of the century doesn't end up happening, which has become one of the greatest moments in WrestleMania history. This is going to be one of those instances that I brought up at the beginning where I do think the failed cash-in would have taken place the exact moment as the successful cash-in. Triple threat matches for the most part are used to protect superstars whether the championship is being retained or a new champion is being crowned. In this instance, regardless of the result, it was done to protect Brock Lesnar from being pinned to lose the championship, which now with the failed cash-in, we would have saw Roman Reigns walk out as the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion by pinning Seth Rollins instead of the other way around. The 2015 winner Sheamus had cashed in on Roman Reigns at Survivor Series 2015 to become the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Sheamus, the Money in the Bank winner that we didn't want at the time, so I'm sure people would have been ecstatic to see Sheamus fail his cash-in. I would imagine the cash-in wouldn't be too long after Survivor Series due to WWE wanting to set up the one versus all Royal Rumble match when it came to the 2016 event. So I think Roman Reigns would have defended the WWE World Heavyweight Championship on the first Raw of 2016 against Sheamus, which did happen in the real timeline, this being Sheamus's cash-in, not as a pre-announced cash-in, but managing to lose the match to Roman Reigns. The 2016 winner Dean Ambrose had cashed in on Seth Rollins the same night he won the briefcase to become the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion after Seth Rollins had just won the title from Roman Reigns. This successful Dean Ambrose cash-in created the moment of having each Shield member hold the title at some point during the event, which I felt that was the reason WWE had him win the briefcase in the first place. Dean Ambrose winning the title also meant that it was going to be exclusive to the SmackDown brand with the revival of the WWE Draft happening shortly after the cash-in. The only way I can see Dean Ambrose failing would be to cash in at Battleground in what would now be a rematch of Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship, only for Dean Ambrose to cash in and fail by being the fall guy of the match to protect both Rollins and Reigns, still creating the triple threat match we had in the real timeline at Battleground, but it's only temporary as it is a cash-in to make that happen. This also means with Dean Ambrose failing that the WWE Championship would remain on Raw while it's SmackDown that would have to create the Universal Championship as the brand's world title. Shoutout goes to Jackson Weingart, Jada Sanchez, Fox Starkiller, Lola Pines, Hayden Saravo, Mr. Randomizer, Harry Dynamite Storm, Skolchin, and Spidey Fan Productions 2003. And the reason that they ended up getting a shoutout is because they joined our YouTube channel membership, which only cost $1.99 a month. Not only do you get the shoutout, but you do get lots of other perks, including early access to every single video and shorts that we produce on this channel. So definitely consider joining our YouTube channel membership. It will be greatly appreciated and will go a long way of helping out this channel a lot. So definitely consider it, but let's get right back to the video. The 2017 women's winner Carmella had cashed in on Charlotte Flair on the SmackDown after WrestleMania 34 to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. I think Carmella would fail her cash in on the road to Survivor Series, as that was the time her alliance with James Ellsworth had come to an end. The alliance came to an end after James Ellsworth had lost an intergender match to Becky Lynch on the November 7, 2017 episode of SmackDown. Perhaps the following week when Charlotte Flair wins the title from Natalya, that Carmella tries to cash in and ends up failing due to James Ellsworth, whether that be retaliation from the week prior or that failed cash in would be a deciding factor of the alliance ending a week later than in the real timeline. I mean, James Ellsworth was the one who helped Carmella win the briefcase in the first place. He could be the one that prevents her from winning the title. The 2018 women's winner Alexa Bliss had cashed in on Nia Jax the same night she won it at Money in the Bank 2018 to become the new Raw Women's Champion. This cash-in was done on the same night, knowing that WWE wanted the Alexa Bliss Ronda Rousey match to happen at SummerSlam to crown Rousey the champion at the event. However, if we're looking at a failed cash-in for Alexa Bliss, it's going to look like she'll cash in sometime after SummerSlam when Ronda Rousey will be crowned the Raw Women's Champion. WWE might have actually had her fail her cash-in at the all-women's pay-per-view Evolution, where Alexa Bliss would cash in after the Ronda Rousey-Nikki Bella match. Although in the real timeline, Alexa Bliss was injured and couldn't compete at that event, that was because of her suffering a concussion while feuding with Ronda Rousey. With Bliss delaying the cash-in, this means she doesn't feud with Rousey until later on, and she won't end up getting injured and would be able to compete at Evolution. The 2019 men's winner Brock Lesnar had cashed in on Seth Rollins at Extreme Rules 2019 to become the new Universal Champion. This was probably the worst decision to have Brock Lesnar win the Money in the Bank briefcase, considering he never needed it to get a championship match. Even without it, he would have been booked in a title match and won the title, which makes this even more difficult to figure out how he would fail a Money in the Bank cash-in since he barely ever lost. So the only logical idea I came up with would be to cash in the briefcase at WrestleMania, whether that be after a match or as a pre-announced cash-in. Considering it would have been the pandemic WrestleMania that this would have happened at, that was Brock Lesnar's final night in the company until SummerSlam 2021. The 2019 women's winner Bayley had cashed in on Charlotte Flair the same night at Money in the Bank 2019 to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Bayley failing her Money in the Bank cash-in would have happened much later than it did, especially seeing the Bayley heel turn and the whole character change happen later on in 2019. So if anything, I think Charlotte Flair would have held the SmackDown Women's Championship going into her match against Trish Stratus at SummerSlam, where she would have retained, then having Bayley cash in on the SmackDown after SummerSlam, only to fail, and it would begin planting the seeds for the heel turn. Considering a few weeks later on the September 2nd, 2019 episode of Raw was when Bayley turned heel by betraying Becky Lynch and siding with Sasha Banks, leading to Bayley winning the SmackDown Women's Championship from Charlotte Flair after she had completed the transformation of her new character we had ended up seeing. In 2020, The Miz had won the briefcase from the original winner Otis at Hell in a Cell 2020, then successfully cashed in on Drew McIntyre at Elimination Chamber 2021 to become the new WWE Champion. The reason for The Miz to win the WWE Championship at the time was to be a transitional champion for it to then be held by Bobby Lashley. So I think it's kind of easy to say with that logic that The Miz would have cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania 37 during the McIntyre-Lashley match so that Bobby Lashley wins the WWE Championship without Drew McIntyre taking the fall to lose. Although the 2020 women's winner Asuka had successfully cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase, it was only because she was given the Raw Women's Championship on the Raw after Money in the Bank, as Becky Lynch announced she was pregnant and could no longer be the champion. This scenario is a bit weird since this run as Ms. Money in the Bank didn't have any legs at all to run with, not even a same night cash-in due to the circumstances. You could have had Becky Lynch announce her pregnancy and vacate the title, leading to a tournament to crown a new champion at some point, allowing Asuka to be able to hold the Money in the Bank briefcase long enough to actually be able to properly cash it in. With how lackluster the Raw Women's division was in 2020, even to the point where Sasha Banks, who is on SmackDown, had won the title, I think Asuka would have done a pre-announced cash-in during the tournament, leading to her failing the cash-in, but eventually does get to hold on to the title, as I think Asuka was a good candidate to be the face of the division while Becky Lynch was gone. The 2021 men's winner Big E had cashed in on Bobby Lashley on the September 13th, 2021 episode of Raw to become the new WWE champion. Although Big E at the time was a SmackDown superstar, the reason he had cashed in on the WWE championship was because had he cashed in on his own brand's title, he would have failed. That being the Universal Championship that was held by the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. So if Big E failed his cash-in, it's due to going after that title. I think after the conclusion of the champion versus champion match at Survivor Series, that would have been Bobby Lashley in this case instead of Big E like the real timeline, Big E would have cashed in after the match for the Universal Championship and would fail to do so. Roman Reigns was basically in the beginning stages of what would end up being the 1,316-day reign, so there was no way that anyone would be successfully cashing in on Roman Reigns anytime soon. The 2021 women's winner Nikki ASH had cashed in on Charlotte Flair on the Raw after Money in the Bank 2021 to become the new Raw Women's Champion. I'm going to keep this short and simple and say Nikki ASH would have done a same night cash-in and failed to do so. The 2022 women's winner Liv Morgan had cashed in on Ronda Rousey the same night at Money in the Bank 2022 to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Money in the Bank 2022 was actually the final premium live event under the full creative direction of Vince McMahon. Therefore, Liv Morgan's same night cash-in would have been the final cash-in under his regime, and had it not been the same night cash-in, it would have been booked under Triple H's regime as he took over creative when Vince McMahon stepped down a few weeks later. So I think because the majority of the women's winners hold it for a max of 30 days or less, that Liv Morgan, who is an uber babyface at that time, would have done a pre-announced cash-in against Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam, which of course, because it's Ronda Rousey, it makes sense that a failed cash-in could happen, although Liv Morgan's successful cash-in was on Ronda Rousey of all people. The 2023 men's winner Damian Priest had cashed in on Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 40 to become the new World Heavyweight Champion, after he had just won the title from Seth Rollins. There had been so many fake cash-ins when Damian Priest was Senior Money in the Bank, and it looked like he was destined to fail his cash-in. The one moment that pops up in my head is the backstage segment of Priest wanting to cash in at Fastlane 2023 after he and Finn Balor had lost the tag team titles. So not at 100%, he decides that he wants to get some gold for the Judgment Day once again by cashing in after Rollins retains the title in the last man standing match against Shinsuke Nakamura. Shenanigans happens, and due to Damian Priest also not being at 100% like I mentioned, Seth Rollins finds a way to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. The 2023 women's winner Io Sky cashed in on Bianca Belair at SummerSlam 2023 to become the new WWE Women's Champion. Damage Control was already on a bit of a losing streak at this point, especially having lost the 6-woman tag team match at WrestleMania 39. I think the longer they would have waited for her to cash in, the more likely she would have failed to do so. Perhaps Io Sky would fail her cash in near the end of 2023, then Bayley doesn't win the Women's Royal Rumble match to set up the same match we got at WrestleMania 40, but no title involved. And the final person we're talking about is the 2024 women's winner Tiffany Stratton, as she would cash in on Nia Jax at the first SmackDown of 2025 to become the new WWE Women's Champion. What a rough year it would have been if we lived in a world where both Money in the Bank winners had ended up failing their cash-ins. Tiffany Stratton failing her cash-in would have been disappointing considering she was the correct person to win the briefcase last year and eventually become champion. The way she would have failed her cash-in would be doing so after the crown jewel match between Nia Jax and Liv Morgan, giving a bit of doubt on which champion she would cash in on, but because she was aligned with Nia Jax at the time, she would end up cashing in on Liv Morgan for her Women's World Championship. I think she would at least win via a disqualification disqualification due to interference from Raquel Rodriguez that would help Liv Morgan walk out of Saudi Arabia with her title.